Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the changes coming out to Subtlety rogues in the patch 7.2.5. Out of all the rogue changes, I feel like Subtlety has some of the biggest, some of the most exciting changes that I've ever seen. So hopefully you guys will enjoy these changes, as I feel that most of you that are veteran rogue players that, let's say, played in Cataclysm or in World of Genre might enjoy the changes based on the way and the path that the game and the devs are taking Subtlety rogues towards. They want to bring back a little bit of that rogue charm. They want to take away a little bit of the magical unicorn fantasy that Subtlety has had with shadowy spells, but still making it a rogue spec. So in today's video I want to take a look at everything that is happening so far in PTR, everything is up to change in the future, but let's take a look at everything Blizzard have got so far. First of all, we have a developer's note. Our overall goals are to remove uncontrolled player teleport from the baseline DPS rotation, to reduce the frequency of teleporting in PvP, to allow players to choose between more frequent or more impactful shadow dances, which equates to more fluent CC/utility or damage in PvP, to keep the PvE rotation engaging, and to make Symbols of Death more engaging. First of all, Symbols of Death no longer increases your damage by 20%. They simply tagged onto the spec that all damage dealt is increased by 20%. So no longer do they have the slice and dice like mechanic in order to just simply maintain mindlessly, which is a good thing, because a lot of you are probably thinking, well, Subtlety has always had this one buff you maintain. Now you have no buff to maintain, this spec is going to be easy. I feel that Blizzard is taking this into a good direction, but we first have to hear out all the changes that are coming out first. First of all, Shadow Strike now hits at a melee range and was used to be a 15-yard range. So when you're with a Shadow Strike and you have your Shadow Dance available, you can only hit at up close. Shadow Strike no longer has a range capability, so as you Shadow Dance, you can't hit it from range, it's back to melee, which is exciting. So basically you have this ability that's basically a ambush. Ambush is basically in the game. But we do have an interesting change, because Shadow Strike is still a mobility ability in specific situations. When used outside of combat, it deals 30% increased damage and teleports you up to 25 yards behind the target. So about this far from an enemy, and Shadow Strike will teleport you behind the enemy and will deal more damage. And it's part of the tooltip. So this is actually pretty exciting, just this change on its own. I think this is going to be interesting because it'll allow Subtlety a little bit different in terms of mobility. Let's continue on. Shadow Step now has 2 charges for Subtlety rogues only. 2 charges of Shadow Step at a 30-second cooldown, 25 yards. That is awesome. So as you can see, Shadow Step to a target, running, Shadow Step again, 2 Shadow Steps. That is awesome. So now you have a little bit more control of who you move to, but you have a lot less mobility or limited mobility, which I feel like is going to improve a little bit on the skill level for Subtlety, especially in PvP. Backstab's damage for base damage has been increased by 30%. So we're taking a look at Backstab right now. It deals in PvE for about 195k worth of damage. Damage is increased by 20% when you're behind your target, so actually the damage is higher than 195. So behind the target, it hits for about 212, that's a crit, 214, 235, so varies very slightly. But that is awesome, because for the longest time I thought Backstab has been an ability that tickles, and why does it tickle? Why can't it be one of the bigger hits? And Shadow Strike hits for a lot harder than a Backstab, but maybe Backstab will now become an ability you can actually use in order to deal damage and generate common points rather than feeling like a waste. Backstab damage bonus from behind the target was reduced though, so the damage bonus was 30%, but now it's 20%, which I feel like overall is not that bad. Quiet Knife artifact trait, I believe it's this one right here, now increases damage dealt by Backstab by 5% and was 3% per common point. So this is awesome. Backstab is going to be an ability that's actually worth taking, and it's an artifact trait that might be worth investing in the future down the line. And this also allows for Gloomblade to be stronger as an ability. As it punches through a target dealing shadow damage, it won't have the 30% increase or 20% increase from Backstab, but Gloomblade might, just might be somewhat of a viable ability down the line. They changed the passive trait of Deepening Shadows. It now reads on the MMO champion. It now causes the finisher moves to reduce the remaining cooldown of Shadow Dance by 1.5 seconds and used to be 3 seconds per common point spent. So you won't be able to get your Shadow Dances quite as often, but you still do maintain this capability. Envelop in Shadows was redesigned, and I believe that is right here. It's a passive. Deepening Shadows now reduces the remaining cooldown of Shadow Dance by an additional 1.5 seconds per combo point, bringing it back to what Subtlety Rogues had in the past. And Shadow Dance now gains 1 additional charge, so if you want your Shadow Dance to go back to how it was, you have to try and trade into it. And it's awesome because they removed the Enveloping Shadows original effect where it gave you combo points when you invest them. So this is great because this allows you options. Deep Shadows, which is now a new talent for you, now causes all damage you deal to be increased by 35% while Shadow Dance is active. That is awesome. So they give you an option to have more Shadow Dances at a faster cooldown reduction, but you're able to have more sustained damage or deal more damage, but you won't have as many charges, and the damage increases only during Shadow Dance by 35%. That is a whopping amount of percentage. Master of Shadows was also moved to a level 90 row. Gain 40 energy over 4 seconds when you enter stealth or activate Shadow Dance. Now this is a good row of abilities. You have Enveloping Shadows for more charges of Shadow Dance and for faster development of it. Deep Shadows, where your Shadow Dance allows you more damage on the target, and then Master of Shadows allows you more energy gain when you have Shadow Dance active over against stealth. A lot more energy over 4 seconds. So this is actually a pretty competitive tree. I feel like Deep Shadows and Enveloping Shadows might still be the stronger talents, but this is at least a little bit more balancing in my personal opinion. I think I'm gonna stick for now on a PTR with Deep Shadows. Premeditation now be moved to a level 100 talent, so at level 100 you get a choice of pre-med, where cheap shot and shadows to generate extra combo point. Marked for Death at a 40 seconds cooldown, which is another change that happened, allows you for 5 combo points on a cooldown and resets if the target dies within 1 minute. And then we have Death from Above, so we have an ability that generates more combo points on the abilities that you already have. 5 free combo points on a 40-second cooldown, which is pretty competitive, or Death from Above for a stronger finisher. I still feel like Death from Above will not be the choice for Subtlety, unless Deep Shadows and Death from Above makes into an awesome combo down the line. You also have a developer's note for Mark for Death and Premeditation. The reason Mark for Death is 40 seconds is to be balanced against Premeditation, which is now in the same row. It's a buff in a raid setting where this talent is very weak. So that is awesome that Blizzard is actually looking at PvE, at least at some point in the environment, PvE or PvP, and tries to balance out talents based on different environments. Symbols of Death was completely redesigned, so let me read the change to it. Symbols of Death now costs 25 energy, has a 30-second cooldown. Invoke ancient symbols of power, empowering the next cast of several of your abilities. So after you use your Symbols of Death, you have a couple different abilities. Your next Shadow Strike generates 2 additional combo points, or your next Nightblade deals 30% increased damage, or your next Eviscerate has a 35% increased critical chance. That is awesome. In my honest opinion, make a Symbols of Death an ability you don't just maintain just as a buff, but rather making this an ability that you would combo for 25 energy and then deliver a combo ability onto your target is even cooler. I also like the versatility that it has for the Nightblade sustained damage, Shadow Strike for the combo points, or Eviscerate explosive damage without a guarantee for damage, just at a higher crit strike chance. That is all, which is awesome. Also, Focus Shuriken is a new passive talent available at level 70. Focus Shuriken. Shuriken Storm increases the damage of your next Eviscerate by 20% for each enemy hit beyond the first, stacks up to 5 times. Increase the damage of your next Eviscerate by 20% for each enemy hit. So if I use it between 2 targets right here, we have 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. So your next Eviscerate can hit for whopping amount of 2 million. Do I need to just have... Okay, so it needs to hit more than 1 target. So technically for PvP, you can have some deliberate combo. So you built up your Focus Shurikens for 100% more damage, then you use your Symbols of Death, and then you simply line up a Shadow Dance into an Eviscerate. Oh, that was cool. That was actually very exciting. Oh, 4 million. I mean, it is a trained dummy at level 90, so the damage is going to be slightly different at other characters that are on level, but that is awesome. That was just so cool to see. Each enemy hit with Shuriken Storm increases damage in next Eviscerate by 25%, stacking up to 5 times. It says 25%, but I think they nerfed it down to 20, because, yeah, next Eviscerate deals 20, not 25. This aims to remove maintaining Nightblade on every target from your AoE rotation on 4+ targets. Instead, Subtlety will deal increased damage during AoE by focusing it on one target. Now that is awesome because Subtlety shouldn't be the spec, and I agree with devs, it shouldn't be the spec that just maintains the dot. While the dot is part of your gameplay and part of the playstyle, I feel like it is an awesome mechanic, but it is also very boring. Just maintaining that shadow Nightblade the whole time. Subtlety needs to be more about explosive damage onto the target. Wow, I'm actually playing this right now, and I'm not getting Master of Shadows, so I need to actually pull my energy ahead of time. Premeditation might not be as good because Mark for Death might be better if you pull an energy with Deepest Shadows. Oh my goodness, there's so many talents now to play with. Subtlety now became a very interesting spec to mess around with. The changes happen to Subtlety are definitely going to increase the skill cap for PvP. You're not going to have as much mobility, and you're going to have to think a little bit more in terms of how to line up your damage. This is going to make it feel like for an exciting way to play a spec for both PvE and PvP, especially with these last rows of talents being redone a little bit. This is all very exciting, and I'm going to be here for you guys, covering every little tidbit that's going to be happening on the PTR whenever it updates. And if you want me to test out specific specs like Subtlety or Combat or Outlaw or Assassination whenever changes come out, feel free to drop that in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
We believe, we just see.